Okay, so today we're gonna be doing another episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. I mean, you guys keep smashing the like button on all of the previous episodes. We've been getting over 5,000, 10,000, even sometimes 15,000 likes, which is really insane. So usually I don't ask for likes on my videos, but today I'm gonna set a goal. Let's see if we could hit 5,000 likes on today's video. That would be insane. Also guys, just like always, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes, leave it down in the comments below, or just literally comment anything. Anything usually just at least sparks some sort of an idea for me to do as a myth. Maybe even comment down like your favorite weapon or just some random city on the map. Just usually something will help me get some sort of ideas flowing. Anyways guys, let's begin today's episode. Jumping into the first myth is, what happens when you try and grapple a cannonball? To do this myth in game, I got my second account to shoot the cannonball out of the cannon itself, while my main account, which is recording, was going to attempt to grapple onto the cannonball. This was actually very difficult to do because not only did I have to click and shoot the cannon on my second account, which is my phone, I had to line it up perfectly, so by the time the rope actually extends and it hits the cannonball, it will be at the exact same point which they meet, if that kind of makes sense. After testing out multiple times, it seemed like the grappler was never really catching on to the cannonball itself. I tested this out a good 20 to 30 times, and at least one of them had to have hit the cannonball, you thought, right? Well, in fact, when I did go into the replay mode and I checked it, you could clearly see that the grappler did go through the cannonball, and sadly, it did not stick through it. In the previous episode where we test to see what happens when two cannonballs collide, you could tell that none of them really have their own hitboxes. They're just kind of like floating invisible objects that when they do come in contact with like a wall or a player, then they explode. I overall thought this was a pretty interesting myth and very difficult to do. I wish you could grapple on though. The next myth is, if you shoot a rocket at a player's balloons, will it blow up or will the rocket just go straight through? In game, when I tested this out, it was very simple to do. Doing this myth was very easy and simple to do. I was in creative, so of course I just dropped my second account some balloons. He then put the balloons on, and I first shot the balloons with a hand cannon to see if they would even break in creative mode, and they did. I then tested this out with a rocket launcher, and as you can tell, when the rockets do make contact with the balloons, they end up blowing up the balloon and also dealing quite a bit of damage to the player that is wearing the balloons as well. This is something I definitely did not know. Jumping into the next myth is, can you launch from a launch pad that is placed on the edge of the volcano? In game, usually if you do place a platform on the edge of the volcano on this little ledge, that spawns actually a couple of chests. If you didn't know already, when you do make contact with that, or literally anything makes contact with it, it'll automatically break almost instantly. So the question is, if you do hit the launch pad, will the floor break beneath it, or will the launch pad act as if it's just a regular launch pad and launch you up into the air? Sadly, I am unable to jump regularly onto it, so I have to glide onto it, and when I do and I hit the launch pad, it bounces me up regular, but when I do go underneath the platform and I do hit the platform with my player's body, it automatically breaks it almost instantly. So I do think it's pretty interesting that the platform does break when your player hits it, but if your player hits the launch pad, it doesn't break. It doesn't really make much sense. Overall though, I wouldn't suggest placing down any sort of buildings off the edge of this ledge, because honestly, it'll break if almost anything makes contact with it, and really, what's the point of a launch pad in this position anyways? Jumping into the next myth is, will you be protected from traps while you're inside of a cannon? I saw literally hundreds of comments of people asking me to do this myth, so of course, how could I miss it? In game, when I tested this myth out, I placed down a spike trap as well as a cannon right next to the spike trap. That way I could literally just push it straight into the trap and see if it would take any effect. Surprisingly, when a player is inside of a cannon, an enemy at least, compared to the spike trap will still deal damage and kill him just about instantly, as if he wasn't even in the cannon at all. This is something I definitely did not know. I was kind of expecting the cannon to kind of mask what he actually was. Maybe like the spike trap wouldn't register my second account as an enemy, but I guess it was different. The next myth is, what happens when you throw a PortaFort into the volcano? This myth was very highly requested as well, just like the previous one. Sadly, since in-game they ended up vaulting out the PortaFort and the PortaFortress in both regular and even playground matches, so I ended up having to do a glitch. That way I could get creative mode into the actual main island. That way I could fly, I could spawn in PortaForts and all of that good stuff. Also, if you want to know how to get back to the main island while being in creative mode and spawn stuff in, there's a tutorial on my second channel down in the description. Anyways, in game, when I threw a porta-fortress on the volcano, the lava, it actually totally got rid of it instantly, making it all just fully fall. That was till I threw down the second one, when I noticed that it didn't destroy instantly until I touched it. But even then, when I would pull out my phone and I would try and press X or whatever button it is to remove, it would do the animation as if these items were removed, but then they would appear back in a state where I could just go straight through them as if they weren't even in the game at all, but the textures were still appearing. This was pretty interesting. I don't know exactly why this happened, but the porta-fortress, it was still standing up perfectly, and it was to the point where I would go and touch a stair up top and it wouldn't instantly break like how it was before. So I guess it's kind of like a 50-50 chance for a porta-fortress to survive in the volcano. The next myth is, will you take damage from other players while you are inside of a cannon? Now you might be confused by this myth. What do you mean by taking damage from other players? Well, from what I got from this, I placed down multiple cannons as well as a llama with a scar inside of it. That way I could get my second account to go inside of the cannon, I loot the llama, I get my scar, and that way I could see if I could deal any damage by shooting bullets to the player's head while they are inside of the cannon itself. I changed teams, that way I was able to deal damage to my second account and end up killing them without having to go through stuff, trying to calculate like imaginary damage points or whatever. When my second account was in the cannon, you could clearly see that the head was poking out of the end of it, but when I would shoot it directly, it would do not any damage to the player itself, but it would do damage to the cannon. I then aimed the barrel up into the sky a little bit, that way when my player would get inside of the cannon, it would do the animation as if they're sliding into it, and then I would shoot them as they're in the middle of that animation. If you notice quickly, when they are in the middle of the animation sliding in, you could actually deal damage to the player itself rather than it doing damage to the cannon. This is very interesting to know, because if you are in a regular game and you see a cannon right next to you and you just need to launch out of there, you know that you're safe and you won't take any damage while you're inside of it fully. Jumping into the next myth is, what happens if you get boogie bombed while you are gliding? I did this myth a couple of months back, maybe like 5 or 6 months ago, but I guess I would update you guys once again since we do have quite a bit of new viewers and this has always been a pretty highly requested myth. I would get my second account to use a rift and glide down right next to me, and I would attempt to throw a boogie bomb directly at him, that way he would start dancing in mid-air. When I threw a boogie bomb directly at him, sadly I was a little bit too close and it was making myself dance, so I then tried this one more time by going all the way down to the ground, and as you can see, the boogie bomb does no effect to anyone doing the glider even right after they land. This is pretty interesting. Now I guess you know not to throw boogie bombs at people gliding, otherwise it could really only affect yourself in a bad way. Jumping into the next myth is, what happens when you touch lava while you have ice cubes on your feet? Now doing this myth, I was a little bit late because sadly chiller grenades and even the chiller trap, they were both disabled from playground mode and even in just regular games. They were just vaulted altogether. So I actually had to do a glitch in order to get myself back to the mainland while in the creative lobby. That way I could spawn myself some chiller grenades or even a trap so I could get ice cubes on my feet. But anyways, with the ice cubes on my feet and I did land on the lava, you could tell that they did not melt like maybe some of you guys would have expected. Just as if you had no ice cubes on your feet, your player would still take damage from the lava and he would bounce around by himself just continuously. The ice cubes lasted the exact same amount of time as if you were on grass or even water. There's literally no effect at all by having ice cubes on your feet, and jumping on the ice, no advantage, no disadvantage, just basically the exact same thing. Anyways guys, that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like and also comment down a unique myth down below for a chance to get featured in the next or future episodes. Also, if you did make it this far in the video, leave a quick comment down below saying 1, 2, 3, and I'll try and notice as many of you guys as I can for being awesome and making it to the end. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time.